Hello, everybody. It's Dovey. Few things. First of all, I talked about this on Twitter, but there's not going to be a Pants on Head week this year. If you don't know what that is, it's an annual silly charity event that I've been running for over 10 years. Um, I can't do it this year. If you want more of a discussion on that, I will link the tweets where I talk about it a little in the description. But yeah, I'm sorry. It would normally have been this week. The rest of this video, I'm just putting a big old content warning. I'm going to be using many different types of violent language, and if that's not something you want to hear, I'm going to be talking about what's going on with Israel right now. If that's not something you want to hear, um, feel free to just not watch the video. There's nothing else. I'm not going to be talking about anything else in the video. There are no streams or anything else this week, so you won't miss out on anything. Yeah. So that being said, I didn't make a weekly update last week because I couldn't. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience of the past week as a Jewish person, and one with many family members and friends who live in Israel and many close ties with the land itself, religiously. Um, and again, if it's something you just don't want to hear about, that's fine. But I appreciate the people that do listen. Saturday morning, two Saturdays ago at this point, um, was the end of the month of Jewish holidays here. We had the New Year, Rosh Hashanah. Then the following week was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And then after that comes a 9-day holiday called Sukkot. Um, and the first 2 days are more of a holiday. Then there's intermediate days, and then the last 2 days are a celebration. It's called in Hebrew Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy, of our happiness, because we're celebrating the end of the season of judgment, and hopefully with a judgment for a good year. We are. It's essentially a time where we would, uh, just relax a little bit and enjoy God's protection and our um, togetherness. So, two Saturdays ago was the start of the last 2 days of the holiday. Shmini Atzeres was Saturday. The next day is that a week ago Sunday was a holiday called Simchat Torah. Shmini Atzeres just means the gathering on the eighth day because it's the eighth day, and Simchat Torah is a celebration of finishing up the Torah. Every Saturday, Jews read from a section of the Torah, and it's divided up, it's divided up so that we go through the whole thing over the course of the year, and on Simchat Torah, we finish it up and start over from the beginning again. And there's a lot of pageantry, a lot of singing and dancing. It's a very, very, very happy time. Kids get candy, lots and lots of dancing. Just dance around with the Torah. It's always a nice experience. Shmini Atzeres is a day where the day before is a day where we pray we start praying for rain because it's the start of the rainy season in Israel, and Israel not really having any rivers relies on rain more than a lot of other countries in order to grow crops, and droughts are considered very bad signs. So we start praying for rain, and Jews all over the world start praying for rain. And it's also a day that we take to remember the dead. There's at the end of each holiday, the last day of each holiday. In this case, it's not the last day because with Simchas Torah, with all the joy of the Torah, we don't want to mar it with a memorial. But usually, the last day of each holiday, we have has a special prayer called Yizkor, which means remembrance, where people who have lost both their parents say prayers, recalling the memory of their lost loved ones. And there's also various communal prayers. There's a prayer recalling the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. There's one for the ones that were killed, soldiers killed in Israel for the War of Independence, and we say one in our community for the community members who have passed away over the course of the year. So it's more of a sad time. But I'm just giving you a little background about what last Saturday was. So we woke up and we went to shul. Shul is the, not Hebrew, it's more of a Yiddish way of saying synagogue. I'm going to say shul because it feels more comfortable to me, but it means a synagogue. We go to shul, and for Shmini Atzeres, for this day where we have to pray for rain and have a bit more of a melancholy experience. And these are one of the holidays, the same as Shabbos, as the Sabbath, that we don't use electronics. We keep away from our phones and everything else. We're off the grid. But there are a few people that have to have them on because we need security. We always have police and armed community members in and around the shul because there have been threats in the past, and that's unfortunately one of the realities of Jewish life, is that we're not safe anywhere. But we go to shul, and there's people with who come and say, like, I heard that something happened in Israel, like there was a Hamas terrorist attack. They came across the border, and there's 50 dead. There's hundreds injured. They kidnapped, over 100 people. And we're all going, what? That's crazy. Like, Israel is usually very much on top of these things. Like, it's a very good intelligence. And so over the course of the day, over the course of the davening, the prayer time, we kept hearing, because Israel is 7 hours ahead of us. So this happened Saturday morning in Israel. So this is already progressing, by the time we get there in the morning, 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m., it started for us. So, it's already afternoon in Israel, and things are progressing there, and we just keep hearing updated numbers. It's 100 dead, 200 dead, 300 dead. And it's mind-boggling for us because, people in Israel, unfortunately, have to live through terrorist attacks. There was the Intifada, which a lot of you might not be old enough to remember, but there were, bus bombings and cafe bombings and just suicide bombers everywhere, and 24 people would die or something, and which is a terrible loss of life, and that was a horrible, horrible time, and it went on for years. But to lose hundreds of Jews in one day is unprecedented since the Holocaust. And it's hard to let that sink in. Right now the death toll for the from the attacks on that Saturday are at 1,300 dead, 1,300 people dead. They shot up a music festival. Those people weren't doing anything wrong. They just went into the music festival, blocked the exits, and killed everybody that they could. They went into towns and shot people, in the streets, in their beds, killed men, women, and children, elderly, it doesn't matter. They took Jews hostage, Holocaust survivors. They shot children in front of their parents. They shot parents in front of their children. They burned babies. They raped the women because, aside from the fact that that's, a demoralizing act, Jews value sexual purity, and, to defile a woman, a Jewish woman, puts a mark on her. And, whether she wants to or not. And, aside from the fact that that's psychologically so damaging for anybody to get raped, like, it's absolutely horrible. But, they do it not only psychologically, but because of religious reasons. And parading the dead bodies through the streets of Gaza, which, I don't know how you can justify that. Outside of this, they did it here too, but outside of this, whenever Jews get killed in a terrorist attack, they hand out candy to children in the streets to celebrate. They make it a joyous occasion. When a terrorist dies killing Jews, their families get a stipend. Their families get paid for how many Jews they've killed, and that money comes from aid money. Where else are they getting it from? That comes from aid money, and it's a it makes people want to do it because my family's having a hard time. All I have to do is kill some Jews, and we'll be taken care of. And that's what people are indoctrinated with. And Hamas and all the other terrorist organizations in and around Israel, they all have the same tactics there. But that's what we've been living with, knowing this for so long. But seeing the shock of so many Jews dead at once, and again, it's something that has been unprecedented since the Holocaust. And for a lot of people, non-Jews, the Holocaust is an event in the past, but for Jewish people, it's really ongoing. It's not only generational trauma, which is a very real thing, but our grandparents, great-grandparents who are still alive are Holocaust survivors. There are still Holocaust survivors alive in the world. So it's not like this is something that happened to other people. This happened to people that are still alive. And, every Jewish family has a Holocaust story, because no Jew was, no matter where they lived, whether they were in the camps or in America or anywhere else, they all were affected by it. They all lost family. Some people lost more, some people lost less. But we very much know and feel the horrors of, mass slaughter of Jews just because they're Jews. And to see this, it's and not only that, it's the blind eye that the world turns to the slaughters because they're Jews, and the justifications given and the celebrations given, because the Jews are finally getting what's coming to them, But I haven't felt this amount of shock at a staggering death toll since 9/11. And there's a lot of people that are so tired of hearing about 9/11, and I don't care. Because I was old enough for it to affect me. I was in New York. I have friends who lost loved ones. I have... I guess every New Yorker has a 9/11 story, but it's a flashpoint experience, memory that will not leave. And to deny people's trauma over that experience is heartless. But just feel like in the wake of the amount of people that died in 9/11 and the unity, acknowledging also that the Islamophobia and xenophobia went crazy, and that was not good. We're just going to put that out there. But the unity that people felt was inspiring. Whereas after this attack, the only unity I've really seen is like a few politicians and Jews. And maybe a few of my friends who were like, Dovey, I'm so sorry. But for the most part, there was an incredible amount of celebration. But yeah, I'm sorry, going back to the narrative that I was telling. Again, this is going to be disjointed because there's just a lot of feelings. So we had to go through the rest of prayers, hearing these, second and third hand information, while some members of our congregation rushed home to call Israel during the holiday because they have children there. Post high school, many Orthodox families send their children before starting college to learn in Israel for a year or two. It's just a way to connect to your Jewish roots and to grow religiously and have some time to grow emotionally as a human, before you start college, and really explore yourself. I spent 2 years post high school in Israel, and they were the best experiences of my life. I can honestly say that I became a better person. I became a lot of the person that or that you think Dovey is, because of those years of self-discovery and independence. So, a lot of members of the congregation have kids who are learning in Israel, and that's not. They're not in the army. They're not doing settler activity, whatever the heck that means. They're sitting and learning the Torah and the Talmud in a yeshiva, and just trying to get closer to God. And people want to kill them for that. And so, we got updated numbers as the day went on, and the rabbi of our congregation decided to put into the Yizkor service a special prayer for the lives lost. And so the whole congregation joined in for that. And then that night we had to go into the last day of the holiday, which was Simchat Torah, where we were supposed to be singing and dancing and celebrating finishing the Torah and starting over again. And we had to go into that in mourning, knowing that there was at that time 700 dead Jews and no reason. And it was a very mixed holiday while we all anxiously waited for it to end, really. We tried to do our best to be joyous in the celebrations, but also remember, what's been going on. And the second that the holiday ended, everybody rushed to their phones to call their family to see what they were doing. Luckily, my family and friends in Israel are okay currently. There's some friends of family who we have not been able to get in touch with. I know a friend of someone on my Discord was killed in Israel. But, we just learned more and more details about the barbaric acts. They blew holes in the wall around Gaza. They had paragliders that went over the walls and then just landed and started shooting. And then I had to come back to social media. And that was really the 1-2 punch, because I didn't come back to people saying this is horrible. I came back to people celebrating. I saw that before there was even any, counterattack by Israel against Hamas, there were already people rallying in New York and other places saying, yeah, this is what you get, Israel, this is what you get. There was, in Sydney, I think, there was a rally for Palestine where they were saying, gas the Jews. And other places where it wasn't about free Palestine, it was about kill the Jews. And there's been so much really thinly veiled anti-Semitism disguised as anti-Zionism, because a lot of people can't tell the difference. Also, anything that Hamas does, they assume is in the name of the Palestinian people, which I don't think is really fair to the Palestinians to say that they agree with a terrorist organization that took over their government in 2007, was it? 2009? I think it was 2007. 2 years after the disengagement from Gaza. To equate them is to call all the Palestinians terrorists. Or it's to say Hamas is not a terrorist group and their activities are legitimate, which I think both of them are disingenuous and, show that you really just don't care about the situation, and it's really about Jew hating. There's a lot of dog whistles that went around. There's a chant from land to the sea, Palestine is free or something like that. And a lot of people think that that's a great slogan. What it means is that they want to drive all the Jews into the ocean to drown. And if you say that's not true, that's how it started. If it's not being used that way, it doesn't matter. That's what the dog whistle is. And people do a really good job at explaining away why it's okay for Jews to die or why it's okay for terrorist attacks to happen. They bend over backwards so much when it comes to Israel to say why this is okay to happen. When it's any other group, anybody else, if you start hearing these dog whistles, everyone just jumps on them. They say, no, that's terrible, that's bad. I think it's the Black Lives Matter Chicago Twitter, which has really doubled down, posted a picture of the paraglider, of a person in the paraglider, saying, free Palestine or whatever, thing it is. And again, the paragliders were the ones that went to the music festival to shoot innocent people just having a good time. So when people pointed it out, they said, yeah, too bad, lol. I guess you never really cared for our organization anyway. Bye. And yeah, and I know that's not indicative of all the Black Lives Matter groups, but when you see people say that I don't really feel comfortable like joining a movement like this, it's because the organizers of a lot of these movements are anti-Semites. Like very, very openly, like so many people call for just the death of Jews, the destruction of Israel, and the same with like the years ago with the uh, the women's marches. I can't even remember what it was called anymore. Um, yeah, I don't even remember the organization, but the people at the head of that were also anti-Semites. So like, I want to show my support for this, but I'm not going to show my support for someone who has celebrated Jewish deaths. And I always just like, it boggles my mind. There's 8 billion people in the world. Why can't you find someone to follow who's just is not a bad person? Like why do we have to give power and say, well, they're bad at this, but they're so important in other things? But like, is that really a justification? Because I don't feel safe with so many of these organizations who cause who celebrate whenever a Jew dies. And you might think that I'm using hyperbole, but like, no, it's not. That's what they're doing. Sometimes they say the quiet part out loud and sometimes they don't. But that's just the mindset of so many of these people. And just social media has been full of people saying, well, the Jews deserved it because of what they do to the Palestinians. And I don't understand how you can be for the rights of the Palestinians that are being caught up in the crossfire here, but not be like, not care about Jews that are caught up in the crossfire, innocent Jews. You know, it it's it's disturbing to me. And just seeing things going on, and I have to reiterate that I don't want innocent Palestinians to die. I don't think that they deserve to die. I think that Hamas deserves to be destroyed because they don't represent their people, hopefully, and they have only said that they want to destroy Israel and then move on to the rest of the world. Right now they're focused on Jews, but they have said live and on camera that they want to go after Christianity as well. Not just the Jews. And it's the same with Iran. It's the same with all the other terrorist states. But, people don't really listen to that. They don't care. They don't look at the, they look past all of the signs that this is something that has to be stopped, because they can't side with Israel at all. And I have problems with the Israeli government. I think all Israelis do. But I don't think that means that you can celebrate when Jews die. I don't think that should. And people do it anyway. And, you talk about Jews dying, and the response is, yeah, but what about... And my response is, yeah, that's bad too, but that's not what we're talking about. Like, it might be a different conversation, but like, imagine you say Black Lives Matter, and then somebody say, yeah, well, what about, white people? And you say, I'm not saying that white lives don't matter. I'm saying that we should also care about black lives. You know, it's not a reductionist statement. It's not saying only black lives matter. But people's arguments, when you say Jewish lives matter or Israeli lives matter, and again, I'm not equating the two organizations or movements or anything. I'm just saying when you say Jews shouldn't die, and they say, yeah, well, what about blank? That means that they do not care. And all they want to do is create some moral equivalency, or it's just a thought experiment to them, or whatever it is. As soon as someone gives you a but when you say blank shouldn't be killed, blank group, it means that they don't care. And if you don't think that, if you've made this argument and you don't personally think that, I'm telling you what we think, what it sounds like to us. When you start making a justification about why Jews died, then that is a one-to-one equation in a Jew's mind that you are okay with our murders. And that is not on us, that is on you. And, I hate to call people out on that, but you have to understand that Jewish history, from when we're a small child, we learn about all of the massacres and pogroms and destruction that has occurred to us. And there's in the Pesach Seder, the Passover Seder, the first night of Passover, we reenact the Exodus from Egypt, going from slavery to freedom. And there's a passage there that we say, Shebechol dor v'dor omdim aleinu chalosenu. Then every single generation, they stand up against us to destroy us. And that's not an exaggeration. In every single generation, there's been some pogrom or massacre or attack on Jewish people. And that's what we live with. And it's not because they're settlers, it's because they're Jews. And it's not because they're Zionists, it's because they're Jews. And if you don't agree with that, well, guess what? Jews aren't only attacked in Israel. Jews are attacked all over the world. And, we have so many prayers now commemorating just the deaths of massacres of communities, especially like during the Crusades. We have an entire period of time between Passover and the next holiday, Shavuot, where we spend half of it in mourning because of all of the horrible, horrible things that have happened to us over the years. We spend over a month, showing signs of mourning because of the massacres that we have had to live through in our history. And it's real to every single Jew now. And, we know, unfortunately, that it doesn't matter where we are or how integrated we are into the communities. Before World War II, a lot of the Jews in Germany, they fought in World War I. They were war heroes whose names eventually got scratched off of the war monuments in Germany. But they fought in World War I on German side, and they were integrated into society. They didn't even consider themselves Jews anymore. And the Germans killed them because they were Jewish. And it doesn't matter how comfortable we feel we are. We're always targets. And that's the unfortunate reality of being a Jew. in the world. And, there's one place in the world where we wanted to not be targets anymore. After the Holocaust, we had the slogan of never again. And never again isn't we were never going to let the Holocaust happen. Never again is we'll never let ourselves be put in this situation again. And, we have been 3 times a day in prayers. Every time we eat, we mention it in blessing after eating, and all over the place. Jews are constantly, during weddings, Jews are constantly mentioning the Holy Land in Jerusalem specifically. It's been our hope to return there since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. And, that's the national anthem of Israel, Hatikva, is about that. Hatikva isn't, we have the Star Spangled Banner in America, which is, yay, we won. Or I don't know how God Save the Queen is, but it's probably look how cool we are. I don't know the lyrics to that. Oh Canada, I think, is just about how cool the country is, but Hatikva is a short song about how we've been pining for Zion, for Israel, for 2,000 years. That this is the hope. Hatikva means the hope. The hope of the Jews is that we finally have somewhere to be, where they won't eventually turn on us because it's us. And, again, I don't agree with a lot of what the government there does, but the land of Israel itself is a holy place to Jews, and it's sacred in terms of being a sanctuary where, for the first time in 2,000 years, it's somewhere where Jews can go where they're not supposed to be persecuted, or where they have the power to do something about the persecution. Because we don't have power in America. We don't have power in Europe. Anti-Semitic attacks have been dramatically rising year over year for the past 10 years. Some of it's Trump, some of it is just, increasing anti-Semitism on the left and the right. People tend to ignore anti-Semitism in their own parties, but there's a lot of it on the left. A lot. They just couch it differently. But it's there, and I feel it in macroaggressions and microaggressions. And so Israel is supposed to be like our hope. It's the Holy Land. It's where, our forefathers wanted to be. But for thousands of years, we weren't able to do anything. Because of first the Romans, and then the Romans actually lasted for a while, and the Crusades, the Ottomans, and the British. The British caused so many problems in the Middle East, but it's the Jews' fault. If you look at history, the British and the French caused almost all of the problems in the Middle East right now because of how they decide to divide things up and also backstab everybody in the deals that they made. But now it's the Jews' fault. It's the Israelis' fault. Every time a Jew dies in Israel, it's because of settler aggression. And, car attacks and stabbings and shootings. Doesn't matter where it is. It's the Jews' fault. And, you may say, oh, Dovey, I don't say that. Like, I only call out, X, Y, and Z. And that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't call out the Israeli government when it does something that it shouldn't, because they should be held accountable. But I want to tell you that Jews can't just leave Israel. We have nowhere else to go. The reason why we act so defensive is because there is nowhere else for us to go. As open as some countries may seem, they do not want us here. They're only tolerate us until they don't. And that's been Jewish history. And Israel is literally the only place in the world for us left. So we will defend it with our blood, unfortunately. And when we are told, passively or aggressively, that we don't belong there, that it doesn't belong to us, you're telling us that we shouldn't exist. And again, that may not be what you mean, but that is what you're saying. And, there's a very large lack of empathy and tact that people use when discussing Israel and the Jews. And it's disgusting, and it's depressing, to have to sit through and live pretending that you're okay with what people around you are saying, casually referencing the fact that the one place on earth where you're supposed to belong shouldn't exist, or implicit or explicitly celebrating the deaths of Jews because those settlers are finally, those occupiers are finally getting what's coming to them, and ignoring our history, ignoring the current situation, and just seeing, through your own biases and through your own hatred. And it makes me personally feel very unsafe, not only in America, but online, because you can't escape. I've never been ashamed of being a Jew or embarrassed of being a Jew in my life, and I won't start now. But am I scared? Yes. I've never hid the fact that I'm Jewish. I wear a yarmulke in all my weekly updates. I talk about the holidays. I talk about, I mention the fact that I'm going, I'm a Sabbath observer on Twitter and Discord. But do I feel like that puts a target on me? Absolutely. And, this has been a very traumatizing week. I do think, the friends that have said things privately or publicly to me, or in general have just been telling other people to stop celebrating Jewish slaughter and, have a little bit of distinction between Jews and the government and Hamas and Palestine. But it's unfortunately not enough. There's only so much we can do. And, I keep seeing, whether it's on Reddit, which is, it's Reddit, on Twitter, Discord, everywhere. I keep seeing people popping up who have the worst of takes. I've had to unfollow and mute a lot of people, that I consider friends, because they chose to just ignore what's going on and take the time to criticize Israel. And if you're going to see a massacre and then Israel's counterattack and then say, Israel, you shouldn't have done that, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you so rabidly focused on that aspect? Like, is it bad when Israel kills civilians? Absolutely. Again, I shouldn't have to say that, But people bring in the but. You shouldn't have to say but when you're trying to say that something was bad. But yeah, anyway, that's a little bit about how I've been feeling. If you've watched this far, I appreciate you. I know that not everybody is going to agree, or they might think that some of my opinions are part of the extremist side of things. I don't think that Palestinians should be decimated. I think Hamas should. I think that the terrorist organizations that lead the Palestinian people should be destroyed because they don't deserve it. The rest of the world, Jews shouldn't have to put up with it, but the Palestinian people shouldn't either. There's so many better, there's so many better people that could be in charge that we can look up to. And it's a disservice to settle for people who are okay with killing because just because they hold some of our views. And it makes me depressed when I see it in a politician or in a activist organization where they'll be like, oh yeah, this person has said, they've said anti-Semitic things in the past, but they're a really important head of our organization, so shame on them. And then they say, I don't take it back, I meant what I said. And everyone's like, oopsie doopsie, let's move on. And yeah, people just like to move on. And I'm sure that part of this sounds like I'm painting a victim complex, but if you try to make the argument that Jews are not a victimed people, then you don't know history. And Jews don't live with the teaching their kids that they're victims. We don't grow up saying that we're victims, because that's a horrible mindset to have, and to grow up feeling victimized. Aside from the fact that it's really depressing, it's it's a terrible way to live. And Jews are brought up to be proud of their heritage, of their history, of values of kindness and charity and prayer, community. But we're also brought up with the reality that the world doesn't like us, and the world has never liked us. And any opportunity that people will have to kill us, they will take. And I don't know if a lot of people really understand that. Maybe LGBT people in America in some places might understand that. Some other minorities as well, I guess. But for some reason, the Jewish people aren't considered minority enough to matter. It always has to be, you see something like this, and you always have to, people feel like they have to take a side. They always have to take a side. And I never understood that. Why do you have to take a side? Why can't you just say this is bad? Is it a betrayal to the Palestinian people to say Jews shouldn't die? And if it is, what does that say about your cause? I don't think it's a betrayal to the Jewish people to say that Palestinians shouldn't die. But if you have a problem with the opposite, then you should think about that. But anyway, I had considered, whether or not I wanted to make this video, because I'm painting a target on my head. A lot of people enjoy making bad faith arguments. They like to say, yeah, but, don't you know about X war crime or this thing? And my video here isn't justifying the actions of a government. My video here is to tell you what it feels like to be a Jew right now and in general when you see people justifying massacres against them. You know, I had a cousin, um, uh, Hallel Ariel, Hallel Yafa Ariel, um, who was murdered in her bed. She was 9, I think. Yeah, murdered in her bed by an Arab terrorist in Israel. She didn't do anything. She was in Israeli, land, not occupied land, and terrorists came into her house and stabbed her to death in her bed. And she was a family member. And, I don't know what's justifiable in that. Anyway, I appreciate you all listening. And, I appreciate the people that have been trying to use tact in some way to avoid the anti-Semitic dog whistles. A lot of Jews tie themselves intrinsically to the land of Israel, so whether or not you agree with the government, saying that Jews don't deserve the land in Israel really is telling us that we should just go die. And it might be hard for people to wrap their heads around, but that's a truth. And I ask just people to think about what they say in the future. And if you have Jewish friends aside from me, just, try to go out of your way to make them feel safe. Or any other oppressed peoples. We shouldn't use language and imagery that connotes violence, because all it does is it inspires people to be violent. And it creates a cycle. And I don't think anybody wants the cycle to continue. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next time.